Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster, part of the Nerd Party Network. I'm Lee Hutchison and I'm joined by three amazing guests on today's show. Richard Oliver, Star Trek Voyager's Robert Picardo, and Doctor Who legend Sylvester McCoy. What brings all three of them together? Well, they all starred in a hugely successful Edinburgh fringe show called A Joke. The show is about a Scotsman, played by Robert Picardo. Yep, you heard that right. A Scotsman, played by American actor Robert Picardo. An Englishman by Richard Oliver. And an Irishman, played by Sylvester McCoy. And these three characters are led into a void and don't get what the punchline of their own joke is meant to be. I go behind the scenes with the trio about the making of this fabulous play. If you visit danfreeman.co.uk, they are auctioning off props and signed programmes to fund the cost of putting on this show. A really good way of supporting the actors, the show, and an original play. And I hope you'll enjoy the show, and thanks again to Robert, Sylvester, and Richard for joining me. Enjoy the show. Yes, obviously the play was fantastic. How did you get involved in this? How did you end up being cast as the Englishman? And
the Englishman. I've known Dan Freeman, the director, for about 13, 14 years, and originally we just became friends.
Yeah.
And then because Dan's a stand-up comedian as well, so I went to watch him, and then I met him. Then we became friends, and that's kind of happened. How it happened really. And then as Dan sort of discovered that I was an actor, eventually started roping me in and offering me bits of work on different things. So I worked on his series Ministers of Chance, and then The Light of September I did with him, and then it was just a kind of a gradual thing really. So I was really surprised when he asked me on this, especially given the guys involved.
Because it must be quite surreal seeing these big guys and stuff here I am and stuff.
Yeah.
It's I love the idea of the play is it's crowdfunded as well, and so many something so rare that happens. You think, big names are already involved. Surely that should get it. It shows people are clearly interested in this play.
Yeah, it's true, and I think so. Obviously, with Sylvester and Robert being so well known in the sci-fi world, people really love them. So it's so I think when it comes to the crowdfunding, I think if you're I know myself. I'm fan of Star. At the minute I've got a whole Lego Star Wars collection thing going on that I've got into. So I think if you are a fan, because the guys are so lovely, it's nice that you can hopefully get in touch with them or be part of the show. And I think that's the thing with the crowdfunding for this. I think it's a really genuine crowdfunded thing where the fans of Dan's projects are really genuinely loved, and hopefully they feel like they're genuinely part of it. Not like sometimes you see something come up, you pay your money and then it kind of disappears, but there's very much a sense of a family with the radio static and it and everybody everybody's part of the production, from the guys who crowdfunded to the guys who are in it, and it feels like one big family. So in that way, it's always really special to work on this stuff.
Because one thing I thought was quite funny was obviously we watched this play in Edinburgh. Here we are in Scotland. There's a Scottish guy with an American accent. But what I found quite funny was obviously they practiced this in England. What was kind of the reaction to the sort of there's the English punchlines in the play, and then there's the Scottish punchlines. What's the kind of been the reaction in England, and then what's the kind of been the reaction in Scotland?
The reaction really has kind of been exactly the same. Wasn't they pulled more towards the Englishman character, when we played up in Cheshire. To be honest with you, on the whole, the reaction has just been kind of fantastic. Everybody kind of seems to enjoy it and understand it, and so there wasn't really much, equally as fantastic audiences back there, and seem to understand the play and get the play in the same way. So I think I'd like to think that it was kind of, they were just as good as these guys here.
Because what's it like doing a play in the festival? You hear all the classic thing, it's one of the biggest endurance tests is to do something at the festival. Whether is it going to be a success? Is it not going to be?
I think I've been up in I think this is about my 6th year. Usually I produce and direct, but this year I'm my second year acting in a play, and I think that I think I mean, it's such a beautiful city. I think it becomes an endurance test because there's so much to do, and there's so much to stay out late for that I think the endurance test is possibly self-inflicted times rather than. And it must be, I suppose we're quite lucky I was going to say maybe we have a bit more of a safety net given the fact that we have two really well-loved actors in it. But again, it can go either way, Edinburgh, and I think that's probably the scary thing is you don't know what a reviewer will write. If people will come to see your show and they might not come just because they can't fit it in. It's nothing. I think sometimes it's hard, maybe, in the years, say, when we've had a play up and we've not particularly done great audiences, or a reviewer said something particularly mean. I think it's hard sometimes not to take that personally because a lot of the time you crowdfunding, it's your own money, it's the fans who have put it in, so it kind of becomes, your responsibility becomes bigger than just, it's just a job, I get up and go to work, because you've got all these people who have kind of created this opportunity for you to be here. So I suppose in a way, there's a little bit of pressure because you owe it. You don't want to say to people, get involved, crowdfund, and here's our half a star show we've created. So I think, but I mean, Edinburgh's a beautiful city to be in, and it's it's magic to be here. So I think it's just. And then when it comes to the endurance, I think it's if you've enjoyed it a little bit too much.
So do you feel more pressure, like Pierre as an actor or as like a producer, director?
I think as an actor, because acting is my I like to think is my primary thing. And then I kind of fell into directing and producing by accident, just by the necessity of a project needing somebody to step in and direct. So I think they're both as equally as kind of worrisome maybe, and but they have different, maybe a different set of worries. But I'd rather be here acting.
And then kind of for yourself, like what's next? Are you working on any other acting projects? Are you working on any other
I've got, at the minute I'm working on a series called Flight of the Rocket, which is written by an American writer. So I play a character called Mr. Charles, who's this kind of secret agent working for the shadow government. So it's a really cool kind of part.
So you go from Englishman to James Bond. You're going through all the archetypes.
It's a very dark kind of mysterious character. So I'm doing that next, and then myself and Dan. I mean, we're always doing stuff. So there has been talk of maybe the light September possibly coming back for a second series, and then what else have I been doing? And possibly working on another piece of theatre with Dan, piece of writing. But no, it's just back to, when this finishes, it's back to looking for jobs. And
Perfect. Well, as I say, you were brilliant in the play, so hopefully I'll think
so much.
Thank you so much for talking. I appreciate it. Cheers. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it. So it's just to talk about the play. How did you two become involved with this one? Obviously, you're playing Mr. Ireland. How did you get involved in it, Sylvester?
Well, I've known Dan Friedman for many years, and I've done some other work with him over the years. Not theatre plays, but audio adventures. And I admired his writing, and thought he was a good guy. So when he asked me to do it, I thought, I haven't been on the stage. I haven't been to the Fringe in Edinburgh. So I thought, wow, why not? I'll do that. And then he said, do you think Bob might do it? Because he knew I knew Bob, because I got to know Bob from conventions. We were at conventions together.
Yeah, and is that how you obviously got involved through Sylvester? This idea appealed to you as well?
Yes, Sylvester and I became friends through conventions. We were at a number of them together, and because he'd already worked with Dan on one audio drama, he recommended me to play a character on another of Dan's audio dramas. So I met Dan via Skype, recording my part in that. And then they brought up the play subsequently, and I have wanted, like any actor from the States who likes to do theatre, would love to play the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So this was an opportunity I had to wait over 60 years to get, and I hope it's not another 60 before I'm back.
Yeah, so what's like the festival experience been like? Because obviously it's been a long time and it's your first time. Like, I was actually interviewing Rick Carranza the other day, and he was like, I was doing a play, and he does a Star Trek play, and he was like, looked at the crowd and there's Robert Picardo. Do you get the chance to go out and enjoy much of the plays, or what's kind of your kind of festival life?
I think I've seen about 6 shows so far. I went to see Rick specifically because I understood that he told a funny and kind of moving narrative about how being a Star Trek fan has affected his life. Sylvester also came that night, and he opens the show really interacting with the audience. So he spoke to both of us and was very well aware that we were there from the beginning. And I've seen some other shows. One of my favorite, I have to say, has been these a cappella singing group. These young women from I can't remember the name of the university, but they do Essex, and they're just splendid. And they give speeches. They give these sort of politically charged introductions to their songs, and then they just sing in this marvelous 4- and 5-part harmony, and they never stop moving. It's quite wonderful.
Perfect. Just a couple more questions. And what appealed to you about playing a Scotsman via an American? And how does it feel like? I know you toured the play a bit in England before you came here. What's been kind of the reaction to all your sort of Scottish punchlines with a Scottish audience?
Well, the play very carefully sets it up that my character is not a Scotsman. He's an American who may or may not have some Scottish heritage. He's not quite clear on that.
They always say that when you're in a steak restaurant. Where are you from? You're from Scotland. Oh, I've got a great... And I thought that line was so true to life.
But so I have the license to have a terrible Scottish accent, which is one of the conditions under which I took the role. If I had to be authentic in any way, I just felt that was beyond my ability. But the fact that I'm introduced as kind of a very enthusiastic twit, and I get to, and there's a lot of fun made of the fact that I'm so kind of innocent, but really the most enthusiastic personality. Sylvester plays the most sort of I guess he's the most curious and trying to figure things out, and of course the British character Richard is the most critical of the three of us.
And kind of finally, like, you have worked on huge projects, Star Trek, Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings, and then when you go into a play like this, you've got a small stage, minimum kind of props. What's that kind of skill set like? Is it a difficult one to translate to, or is it kind of just that classic training comes into experience?
Well, no training involved. I never trained for anything. But no, I mean, theatre does a lot of stuff without sets. So, it's up to the audience's imagination.
And how did you find that translation quite an easy one to make?
Well, we had a very abbreviated rehearsal period. I was only here for 3 or 3.5 days of rehearsal before our first preview. So I had to kind of arrive knowing the play sort of as a piece of music. Had no idea where I'd be going or how we'd be interacting, but I knew the sound of the whole thing, so that made it. But it was still a bit of a rush to get it together, and I haven't worked in the round in a while. But that turned out to be not difficult. It's pretty intuitive, So yeah, the rehearsal period, partly because Sylvester and Richard are both such pros and so easy to work with. The rehearsal period was. And Dan too. Dan, our director. It was quite simple and enthusiastic.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today. I was flicking through the channels and you were on the TV this morning, and I went to my girlfriend, I'm going to interview him this afternoon, and she was like, oh wow, it's quite a surreal experience. So thank you both for joining me, and enjoy all the best with your play.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.